And I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Oscar season episode.
It's that time of the year again, folks.
It is the time of year when we all go, who are they going to give trophies to? Where what I'm talking about there is that they basically just give awards to themselves because the people who are in those categories vote for it. It's kind of weird when you think about it. It's basically an award show for themselves.
Yes.
But it always is an interesting show, just like the Golden Globes was on You Never Know What's Going to Happen. You don't know who's going to win what. And I mean, sometimes there's certain givens.
You know what I always found odd about the whole Oscars? A lot of people will tune in and watch them, even though they haven't even heard of some of the movies that have been nominated.
Right. Yeah, they haven't heard of them. But they're all very excited for that movie to win.
Yeah, much less seen.
Yeah, it is. The Oscars always is interesting because they have because they just have a Best Picture category and they don't separate it into like independent movies and big budget movies. It's just they're just all clumped together. It is interesting because
I think we all know that most big budget movies are kind of not welcome.
well, I mean, not usually. But you got to remember that Return of the King did win Best Picture and 10 others. But that is what's interesting is that you just don't know what's going to happen, and yet a lot of times you can pretty safely assume like, oh, that one's probably going to win Best Picture because I've barely heard of it. Or all the critics seem to say that one is on their top 10 list, and so it's probably going to win Best Picture. Because that does seem to be the trend of Oscars where if there isn't just like a movie like Rocky or Return of the King where there's just kind of this big culturally affecting movie that they just kind of give it to the one that feels like smart and artsy or whatever it happens to be at that time period. And usually the big budget movies end up winning like best visual effects or something, or best sound editing or best song or something like that. Like when Adele won for Skyfall.
Yeah.
But even like best song, a lot of times, that'll even go to a documentary.
Yeah.
Like Lady Gaga's nominated this year for a documentary.
That's crazy. I wonder if she wins this time, she'll kind of just walk up stage and just kind of bump into Leonardo DiCaprio and look down on him like she did at the Golden Globes. Like, how dare you get in my way, mortal?
That was kind of more of blown out of proportion. I think she looked like she's maybe just kind of in a daze, and he didn't even know what was going on because I think he just wasn't paying attention because he's Leo. He's been there a million times and knows he's not going to win. Oh wait, he did win that night. So.
He probably said to himself, whoa, she got nominated for acting? What?
Who's this crazy person? What is she doing here? And why isn't she wearing meat? But, yeah. We thought we'd just throw some of our, before we find out who the new winners are for 2016, although it's for 2015 movies, we'd go into the past here, open up the vault. And look at some of our past...
Dust off the cobwebs.
Yeah, our past favorite winners. More or less focusing on like the Best Picture category and Best Director category, just because they're just kind of the most... they're just kind of the easiest ones to look at and kind of get a general consensus of the movie. But before we do that, though, what are some... There are a lot of still... big performances out there. What are some performances, Dakota, that have won Oscar that they won acting Oscars for that you liked?
Best acting ones?
Yeah, just anyone in the acting category that you thought.
You
always thought, okay, yeah, they deserve that.
I think the big one for me, No one's going to be surprised. Anthony Hopkins for Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. And he was it must have been for a supporting actor since he wasn't the lead.
Yeah, he wasn't the lead in that. But it was just, I mean, in most movies, especially movies like that, they kind of get overlooked, it seems like. We had Gone Girl not too long ago, which I thought was a really good movie. So did a lot of other people, just completely ignored, even though it had some really good acting in it. And plus, he was Hannibal Lecter. I mean, that was one. It wasn't too long ago. It was back in 91.
Sons of the Lambs.
Yeah,
it was like 91.
Yeah, so it wasn't that far long ago, and he just did such an amazing job. I mean, to this day, his performance in that is still just kind of creeping out people who watch the movie, and just kind of AFI when they did their 100 villains list, he was number 2. Actually, scratch that. He was number 1. Darth Vader was number 2. Crap, kind of messed that up. But, yeah, and it was just an amazing performance, and just blew a lot of people away.
Yeah, I mean, he was known for. I mean, that's how a whole generation really knew him. He was Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah,
and so. Yeah, I guess for me, some performances I've liked are, a couple of them come from, they both dealt with World War II things, but I would argue that the one, even though World War II is the set piece, that the movie kind of transcended that because it was more of almost a character study. And I'm referring to George C. Scott's portrayal of Patton.
Classic movie.
And that movie, I always have felt, and I mean, it's not like this is me having some original idea. I mean, I'm sure other people have thought of it this way. It really is this character study of one man and how his personality and things like that just kind of shaped how he treated the time period in war that he happened to be involved in, and how it made him very off the wall. Kind of to a lot of people, he wasn't, what's the word, where
he wasn't everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, he just kind of wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and he did things that weren't probably the best way of handling things. But man, George C. Scott, my goodness, he's just riveting in that movie. You're just like gripped by every moment he's on the screen, which he's practically in every shot of that movie. And what's interesting, I guess, just in terms of winning the Oscar, is that even though he won, there's kind of an asterisk, there that he didn't accept it. He didn't show up, and he just kind of rejected it. And I think part of it is he's just kind of one of those eccentric actors, and it's kind of one of those things where it was just kind of his statement of saying, "Oh, I don't do it for the awards. It's my art form, or whatever." And so there's kind of that. But he did technically win, even though he did reject it. And actually, we were just discussing how he came back and did a TV movie sequel, The Last Days of Patton, in like 1986 or something, and how that's very interesting. How many Oscar-winning actors come back and do a TV movie sequel? Just not too many, and I think maybe we learned from that maybe that isn't a good idea, because I don't think that's very highly regarded. I haven't had a chance to ever see it, but another one that always kind of captured me, where he's the reason this movie's even remembered, thought of, and possibly even known to this day, which we're now pushing 10 years later. And that's Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in There Will Be Blood. My goodness, what another role where it's like you don't even feel just like Patton is the same way for me. I don't even feel the time of the movie because I'm just like watching this so character performance that it's just quite a thing to watch when somebody's doing it well. And his performance in that movie of a man who's basically goes insane from his obsession with really more not being enough almost type of thing. It's almost a story in greed is what it more or less is, and it's just quite a performance. But yeah, just I feel like that. And some I don't know how you felt about it, but I always thought Reese Witherspoon, she won for playing June Carter Cash in Walk the Line. I thought that was a pretty good performance. I thought she was someone who, that to me was an example of someone who maybe, even though she didn't look the part, she still was able to make the part her own to where you bought it, because she was just, Reese Witherspoon was like 5'3", She's just this tiny little thing, but she made the part her own and really captured the kind of personality and persona of June Carter in a way that made it work. And so I thought that was good too. But yeah.
Yeah, one talking about another kind of iconic performance up there was that has always been one of my favorite would have to be Robert De Niro's take on the young Don Corleone in Godfather 2.
Okay. Did he win for that?
He did. He
Really?
won Best Supporting Role. Al Pacino was actually nominated for Best Actor.
Yeah, okay. But he didn't win?
No, he did not win for that one. And it's odd because...
Oh, yeah, didn't he not win till, like, Scent of a Woman or something?
Yeah. Which, to be fair, that was them saying, here's for all the times you didn't win, sir. And he was just like, hoo-ah, I don't care, I won.
Yeah, exactly. And then he never stopped hoo-ahing ever since.
Now he's all about the Dunkachino, but
oh boy,
that's a conversation for another day. But he says so very little in that movie in Godfather 2, but he's almost like the heart and soul of the movie. I mean, we watch his character from young boy fleeing Italy for his life, coming to America. Eventually he grows up, meets a girl, starts a family, and he's just this schmo trying to just survive in life. Then one day his neighbor asks him for a favor, and he agrees. And he kind of gets caught up in this world of organized crime, and he just decides, okay, this is my way out of this slum. And it's pretty amazing too, because Marlon Brando, one of the greatest actors ever, was the older
and greatest weirdos.
Yeah, was the older Don Corleone, and the two of them, it's just so hard to tell which one acted them better. It really is. And that's incredible. I mean, who else can say that they matched Marlon Brando?
And I would just like to pause for a second for those of you, let's just call you millennials to give it a short phrase. We just want you to know that Robert De Niro used to be a really good actor. We don't know what's happened to him recently, if he just needs the money or what, but the guy can act. Don't let these dirty grandpas and meet the parents grudge match things fool you. The guy's an actor. Yeah. Same with Al Pacino.
Yeah.
He used to be able to act too. I think maybe they still can. They just don't have the right roles. I don't know.
Maybe when you get to a certain age, the roles dry up, so you just got to take whatever comes your way.
What's interesting about the way they did Godfather 2 with showing the Robert De Niro playing a young Marlon Brando story at the same time as Al Pacino, his story is how Michael was always thought of to be kind of like, in the first movie, kind of the innocent one who kind of ended up having to fall into becoming, the Don. And yet that movie kind of shows that you almost realize that in a lot of ways, Michael ends up going a lot darker.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an interesting twist because you feel like Michael's the one who just kind of, but then he ends up going all the way to becoming the Godfather himself in a very dark way. And so it is cool how Coppola, the way, since he did it that way, how you get that mere thing and it makes you realize, it also gives you that further look into Michael's departure, I guess you could say, into that role in life more. So, yeah. But yeah, well, that's what I love about this show is we weren't really going to talk about performances that much, but here we did. But this is Dakota Boys Talk Movies. That's what we do. We talk movies. And so things just happen, and I like how it happened, and I like that we ended up talking about performances more than we even thought we were. It's all right. It's good stuff. But I think what we're going to do now is we'll kind of go into maybe some of the directors and what they've won for and why we think that was a great decision on the Academy's part for recognizing that person. So what are some directors you thought of, Dakota?
You know what? I'm going to go back to The Godfather 2. I had actually forgot Francis Ford Coppola had even won one.
Yeah, he did.
You know, every time...
Dakota likes The Godfather, as you can tell here.
Well, no, it's just because every time a director puts out a movie, there's always that tagline, from Academy Award-winning director. You don't really see that. I know he hasn't really done much.
Yeah, he doesn't make many movies is the problem.
But in the 90s, he was still doing movies, and you never had that. Never like the mastermind behind the Godfather series.
Well, that's because he made like The Rainmaker and The Black Stallion, or whichever one of those Black Horse movies he made. So it was just kind of like...
He did Dracula, which I thought was pretty cool.
But again, with that, it was kind of like... I don't know, that's not a movie you really tout the director of The Godfather, you know, and that's the thing. He's just, because he does so many different things, it's really hard for him to tout that, you know, use that as like a selling point, you know, without misleading people, maybe.
Yeah. No, I just find it interesting because a lot of people consider Apocalypse Now his greatest movie, and I think it was nominated for just a few.
Yeah, and he's probably just happy people remember that movie because it sounds like that movie was a nightmare to shoot and make, and that it like just was an absolute mess that we have anything at all, I guess.
All right, Steven, quit puttering around. Let's talk about Steven Spielberg.
You talking about Steve Spielberg? Yeah, well, I mean, he is one that crossed my mind because...
I think that's what a lot of people are expecting us to bring up.
I mean, yeah, we're going to bring it up because it is weird. But I think it's it's just an example of, this is going to get the best picture, Shakespeare in Love, but you're still going to get the best director because you were the mastermind behind... that great film, when Steven Spielberg won for Saving Private Ryan, and how, and I think that's a very deserving Oscar win for him. And also I think it was a nice kind of cap off for, this would have been late 90s that he got this, where it was just like, we were almost just thanking him for everything he did before that too, because just the guy who gave us so many great iconic movies over the years, like Jaws and Close Encounters and Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park, and just really gave us a lot of movies that got a lot of people excited about making their own movies, or just watching movies, or made you not want to go swimming in the ocean, or made you think that cloning with DNA was a bad idea, or just anything. I mean, he just made a lot of iconic movies with iconic characters, and I think it was a little bit that, but also, even if this was just for Saving Private Ryan, which, I mean, it really was in a way, he just crafted, whether you really don't really know, some people have strong feelings about that movie in the negative way where they really don't like it, and I understand that, but I think you still have to admit that there's a lot of craftsmanship in what he did with that movie, in that, you know, he directed a modern classic in a lot of ways. So, yeah, another one I guess I would bring up is just, and this one's just kind of more for like you people who care about maybe like film history and things like that, is John Huston. He won Best Director for Treasure of Sierra Madre, which was just, 1940s kind of adventure movie, but adventure mixed with maybe noir a little bit. But what was interesting about this movie, it was the first movie that was filmed on location, and so it just kind of had this more realistic feel to it, and gave the adventure all that more adventurous feel, and so I think, that really helped John Huston get the Best Director for that, in that he just he was one of the pioneers in saying, let's actually go to the place, and make this movie, let's put the actors in those places where they can play this out, and maybe we are in the elements a little bit, but okay, and so that's just kind of cool. Do you have any other directors, Dakota?
One that I'm going to bring up that a lot of people aren't familiar with, but you certainly are, is David Lean.
Oh, yes, David Lean.
He won for Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia.
Yep, two magnificent movies. Again, very deserving. When you look at both those movies and just kind of the scope of what he would have had to have done with them, yeah, just he was the guy in the chair who had to make all the calls for all that stuff, and dang, yeah. Good movies. But yeah, any other? Should we jump into our best pictures?
Yes, let's.
Okay.
Sorry, I was lost in thought. I thought I had more, but I guess the tank's empty.
All right. Well, we'll talk about a handful of just our best pictures we really enjoyed over the years, and what's one or two you got, Dakota?
Probably one of the finest acted films ever put on the screen, which would be One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay, yeah, I knew you were a big fan of this movie, and Jack Nicholson won, right, for performance too?
Yes, he did. Which is actually pretty surprising because there's not, compared to some of the roles he was in, like Chinatown, it wasn't that big. There's hardly any real story to this. It's just all kind of raw acting. I mean, Louise Fletcher, I think she was nominated, but I'm not really sure if she won. She should have for Nurse Ratched. She kind of created that archetype for the just kind of evil.
Yeah, and what is the rundown of the story of that movie?
Jack Nicholson's character, can't remember his name off the top of my head, is serving time in prison, and rather than go to a work farm, he kind of pretends to be insane. So they send him to this psychiatric hospital, which is actually just a place kind of devoid of life and happiness, and these patients kind of just have their daily routine they go through, and they're all just pretty much sedated. Nobody wants to change anything, and that's how Nurse Ratched would like it, because it's nice and quiet. I think it's even in this, Scatman Carruthers plays one of the orderlies in it. I think he plays the main one, but there's just a lot of very fine acting in this. Danny DeVito was in this, very young.
Oh, yeah, he would have been pretty young in that.
God, what was his name? Steven Dorff, the voice of Chucky.
No, not Steven. Brad Dourif.
Brad Dourif. I'm sorry. Has a pretty good role in this one, which is shocking because I didn't realize it till years later that, holy cow, that's Chucky. Grima Wormtongue for some of you, but
yeah, Grima Wormtongue in the Lord of the Rings series.
But this is definitely one of the. A lot of people think this movie's kind of depressing, just because of what happens to Jack Nicholson's character. But I think it ends on a happy note, because you have this guy who's been locked up in there, pretending that he's brainless. Breaks free and decides that he's gonna go live his life because he remembers that he's still alive. And
you touched me, Dakota.
And it actually is cool watching a 6'5" guy rip a sink off the floor and throw it through a window.
Wow, yeah, that'd be something to see.
You've seen it, right?
No, I think I've seen parts of it.
Oh man.
I
know what we're doing next.
We'll let Dakota bring up another one, but I'll throw out one first, and we'll cut back to him. Dakota did bring this one up a little bit just because he did win director for it and for Lawrence of Arabia, but it won Bridge on the River Kwai won Best Picture, and again, that just a very deserving one. This is an interesting movie too, in that, again, this is a World War II picture, but it feels like a character study a little bit. You get into Alec Guinness. A lot of people know him as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but this was 20 years before he was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think this is the role he'd rather be remembered for, and after you watch this movie, you understand why. And he did win Best Actor for this movie, but he just gives an amazing performance in this as a British officer who really works hard to make this Japanese, the Japanese commander of this POW camp, follow the Geneva Convention rules, and really, Alec Guinness in a lot of ways becomes a thorn in the side of that man. But then it comes to this place where these POWs are forced to, or their job they're given is to build this bridge over the River Kwai. And this is in, where does it take place? Burma? Or
yeah, I believe
it's in Burma.
I think it's Burma.
And Alec Guinness is just, he's such a proud British man that he has this determination to make this be the greatest bridge. And part of it is that he thinks, well, we can use this bridge as a symbol of like our determination and ingenuity even with this situation. But then there's some element there. William Holden is in this movie, and he plays an American who's at this place, and there's some opposition to how Alec Guinness is handling this whole situation. And it becomes just the whole movie, just everything about it is just a really interesting movie if you like those type of POW World War movies. If those are your kind of cup of tea, it's a good with that. But if you just like a good kind of human drama too, it works so well on that level also. But man, what a movie. I love it more every time I watch it. I just do. What's another one you got, Dakota?
Another one I have is something from my childhood that, even though its star is kind of not well liked anymore, I think the movie.
Oh, I know what he's saying now.
I think the movie is still amazing, and I love every moment of it. I'm referring to Braveheart. It was a toss-up between this one and Gladiator, but I'm not gonna lie, this one, just every moment of it, I loved it growing up. Still love it to this day. No matter how crazy Mel Gibson gets or what he says, it's not going to destroy the just beauty and soul of this picture.
And I think if you're all honest with yourselves, you'd understand most Hollywood actors are crazy. It's just he's one that got outed as, crazy, and they all just, kind of blackballed him in that category. But you can't take away the fact that this guy could act, and man, he nails it.
Yeah,
in Braveheart.
Not only did he star in this movie, he actually directed it, which, from what I heard, I've never acted and I've never directed, but I'm told it's actually very hard to do.
Yeah, I've heard that too. That it's a extremely daunting, especially when you're making a movie that's this epic in scope.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, can you imagine? Because you're trying to direct these giant, like, battle scenes, which is okay. You're directing these giant battle scenes, but here's the thing: you're also the guy leading the charge in that battle scene. You as the director. And so, I've seen some behind-the-scenes footage where he's basically kind of jumping behind the camera, making sure everything's going to kind of pan the way he wants it to pan, and then he goes back and does his thing in the movie. I mean, this takes someone with energy, but not only that, you have to really believe in the movie you're making to do something like that.
He had help with the Randall Wallace wrote the just perfect script.
Probably Randall Wallace's best script. I was a fan of his We Were Soldiers script also. But yeah, this is probably his best script. I mean, he wrote Man the Iron Mask, and that movie's okay. He wrote Pearl Harbor, and I'd be curious how much of his Pearl Harbor made it on screen. Maybe most of it. Maybe that just wasn't one of his better scripts. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. With those things, it's very hard to tell.
It's just hard to know with that. But yeah, this is. He just had but if you'll notice there, who we said the screenwriter was, we said it was Randall Wallace. And if you remember, this story is about William Wallace, and that's why Randall Wallace wrote this movie. Is that he realized that this William Wallace is way far back in his ancestry, and he decided to do some research on him, and then this movie was kind of the fruition of his research into his kind of ancestry. So yeah, kind of interesting stuff, and maybe that's why it's one of his better scripts, is that he just cared more.
Yeah.
And I guess there's that too, but it was more than a job, so to speak.
Kind of a big moment in history that kind of got forgotten about.
Yeah, a lot of people kind of forget the impact King Edward the Longshanks, as they called him, had, and just who he was, and what a great and a lot of people forget about the Scottish Uprising.
Yeah, what a great name for a villain, Longshanks,
played by the masterful Patrick McGowan.
Yeah, unfortunately, he wasn't doing much work at that time, but he showed up, gave it his all.
Oh, totally. Oof. He's just a sleaze bag in this movie, in all the right ways. And what I mean by that is he's exactly how you're supposed to think he is. Don't like him. So,
all right, Steven, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I guess, next one I'd like to bring up is we're only coming a couple years after Bridge on the River Kwai. Ben-Hur.
Yes.
Wow. This is a movie I picked up on Blu-ray, I don't know, a little while back. And man, time does not hurt that movie. And it's just compelling story. Charlton Heston probably in the best role he ever played, and I don't even care if you think 10 Commandments is a great movie. I still think Ben-Hur is his best performance. And this movie is just great. He plays character Judah Ben-Hur, is his full name, and yeah, he's basically there's like a series of circumstances that basically gets him kind of betrayed by a friend, and he ends up in more or less slavery, and then it's just kind of his his story of going of that process of it. But it's also the book it's based off of is called Ben-Hur, A Tale of Christ is actually the title of the book, because what they kind of do is he's alive during the time that of Jesus coming, and so they kind of have him through his life. He runs into these places where Jesus just happens to be doing one of the significant things that Jesus did, and so it that kind of plays into the movie, and it's kind of interesting how they kind of tie that in and what they do with that, and like I said, Charlton Heston just gives a really great performance, and my goodness, this whole movie, even if the whole movie was mediocre, or if most of the movie is mediocre, it's worth it just for the chariot race scene alone. But you have a good movie, plus you have an awesome chariot race scene, and so I mean, my goodness, it just makes it even more
one of the
amazing to watch, because that chariot race scene just blows me away.
One of the great things about that movie that is just remarkable, which should be remarkable to anybody, is just the expansive sets they built.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is a movie where, everybody's like, oh, Quentin Tarantino filmed Hateful Eight in like that Panavision widescreen, and stuff. But this is a movie that was just a feast to the eyes, because when they had those, just the big shots, and that's what I mean. When you're watching that chariot race, you think, guys, it's like, are they actually killing themselves for this movie? I mean, it just feels like those guys are actually dying when they get trampled or something.
Yeah, this is back before CGI, so all the sets you see, all the stunts you see are people. All the extras you see, those are real people.
Yeah, I mean, it's all quote-unquote real. I mean, there's still movie magic involved, but yeah, like Dakota's saying, like the extras still had to be there. I mean, they couldn't really do anything much about that, but I mean,
yeah, there's actually a part in that chariot scene where you kind of see a guy fly forward into the horses.
Yeah,
that's a real guy, people.
I know. I think about that. That's the one that really gets to me. Like, what?
There was no dummies used. No, they didn't.
Yeah, somehow there maybe must have been dummies, but I don't know. Like, that's like, how did they do that? I don't know. Really gifted stuntman.
All I remember hearing is the guy like managed to catch himself in between the horses before he went under the hooves.
That is insane. That is insane, is what that is. But
it's right, adrenaline junkies. Let's see you try that. Just kidding. Don't do that.
No,
you'll kill yourself.
We're not condoning what they're doing there. I mean, leave it to the professionals. Maybe let's put it that way.
And then another kind of scene in that movie that I think a lot of people just kind of forgot about is the scene where he's shackled in the boat and he's just
my
rowing.
Goodness. Yeah, that scene kind of has been parodied before. But it doesn't take away from the power of that scene when you're watching it. And yeah, that is an interesting, and again, that's another scene where it's like seeing all those guys in there, and it's like, it just, I don't know, you just feel the pain in that moment.
Yeah,
it's just what a
you have the guy at the front banging
the drum to keep rhythm, because they're all paddling in a rhythm, and oh my goodness, just think about that. I want you all just to picture like a rolling up and down type motion, like for hours on end while the guy drums, boom boom boom, the whole time. Imagine that. Yeah. Exactly. I know what you're thinking. Maybe my job isn't that bad.
Yeah, they definitely do not make movies like this anymore.
No, and that's why it is. That's why I think it is important for all of you to go back and you don't need to watch like every crap fest that was ever made, but like find these ones that like, well, it seems like a lot of people talk highly of that one, or it seems like a lot of people talk highly, but give it a shot. You just never know. And these ones we're talking about here, now that I think about it, we didn't even go back to any black and white ones, but don't let black and white deter you too. There's some movies that I actually think that enhances it. Because there's certain movies where, especially movies that are relying on like those like certain intrigue type movies, like the black and white just lends itself to that with like how they do the shadows and things like that, where it's just like, oh, you just feel it, you know.
Like Casablanca.
Yeah, Casablanca would be probably the most popular black and white movie.
Yeah. The big one, Orson Welles' is Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
Which is kind of the reason movies are the way they are these days.
Yeah, he was really the pioneer in modern filmmaking, because a lot of what he's doing at the time was considered very eccentric and bizarre, and really what he was doing was just pioneering modern filmmaking.
Yeah, one thing he used was flashbacks.
That
was not a thing, people.
No, he did and he was 27 when he made Citizen Kane.
First time directing too. War of the Worlds doesn't count, the radio show.
Yeah. But that was also probably his downfall, was the fact that you have a movie that is like untouchably a masterpiece in most people's minds, and you do it when you're 27. You got a lot of life left, and everybody's expecting you to make the next Citizen Kane.
Well, the problem is, by making that film, he made a pretty big enemy. That was William Randolph Hearst.
Right.
Was
really, smeared him pretty bad.
Because the movie was in part kind of based on his life.
Yeah, and if you know William Randolph Hearst story at all, it's pretty noticeably based on him. I mean, it's not like it's like, you know, this guy's just trying to make, you know, something out of nothing. I mean, it's noticeably that.
Speaking of, got any more?
The only other one I guess I was thinking of bringing up is one you again kind of touched on, was just Gladiator. What a way to start the new millennium.
Oh yeah.
Well, that was a year 2000 movie, and again, you can go in this movie and nitpick that not everything about it is perfect, but no movie is perfect. But my goodness, this is still a good movie, very good movie.
I was kind of hoping it would inspire more of the sword and sandal epics.
Yeah, but the ones kind of have a comeback in those.
The ones that came out were just, it was like, what were you thinking? Yeah, I'm looking at you, Troy.
Yeah. Troy, there was just a few tiny little things about Troy that they got right. And by that I mean like the look of the the Greek soldiers and the Trojans and things like that, looked good, but yeah. And even Ridley Scott himself, Kingdom of Heaven, just quite didn't work. I think part of it is that when it's by the guy who did Gladiator, and they're billing it as the director of Gladiator, and they're showing these shots of swords and stuff, you're kind of expecting more of it than you should have when it's starring Orlando Bloom, which he had technically kind of worked with in the past, because Orlando Bloom did have a small role in Black Hawk Down. Yeah,
that's true.
But I think what helped Orlando Bloom get that role was he was coming off of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and was kind of the fresh face it guy there because of that. You don't really hear much of him these days. What is Orlando Bloom up to these days?
I have no idea.
Thankfully he got some. Yeah, Peter Jackson helped him.
The Hobbit movies, but which a lot of people were asking why.
Well, it's kind of strange. It was a little strange, but
yeah,
they are what they are. But yeah, do you have any other best pictures?
One I'm going to bring up here because it was a pretty big one, and it was pretty important to its director, Schindler's List.
Yes.
A very difficult movie for Steven Spielberg to make because it dealt with Jews, the whole concentration camps. He himself being a Jew.
Yeah.
Jewish.
It was his passion project, really. And the other thing that's crazy about Schindler's List is he basically finished filming on Jurassic Park and jumped right into Schindler's List. Now I want you to think about that. Now he went from like Jurassic Park, just like this big special effects dinosaur extravaganza, into just a meaningful passion project. But I think in a way maybe that was therapeutic for him to go from all those years of working on Jurassic Park into something that he cared so heavily about. Schindler's List is not an easy movie to watch. It's one that maybe you never even want to watch. Or if you do, like, one time.
This movie was just so great that when it actually finally made it onto TV, it was unedited. That's how amazing this movie was. And that was a big thing, because so much in this stuff, obviously everyone's not going to agree with it. There's some nudity, horrible violence, swearing.
They show a concentration camp. He filmed it in black and white. And part of his reasoning was that's how we know that time period, because that's what the pictures were in. And the other part of that is because he did that, is that those concentration camp scenes feel almost brutally real. And that's what makes it hard. It's kind of one of those things where I think even if you never watch this movie, which is totally understandable, I think we can also understand and maybe appreciate his reasoning for why he did it, because I think it did shed a lot of light on people who kind of understood that, and some people maybe kind of tried to pretend it didn't happen, maybe. And it did happen, and it also spawned the Shoah Foundation, a foundation that he created out of this, that was Holocaust Survivors Holocaust Survivors Foundation type thing, and for their families. So yeah, probably his most personal / powerful movie, and Liam Neeson gives one heck of a performance in it as Oscar Schindler. He got overlooked, didn't he?
Oh yes, he did. Actually,
did Ray Fiennes get overlooked for his portrayal of
I think he was nominated. He's one of those actors who I was honestly surprised he wasn't nominated for Skyfall when he showed up in that. Because it seems like no matter what he does, well, obviously he was overlooked for Harry Potter.
And then what does he get? Like a win for, like, English Patient or something?
Yes,
it's
one of the most disliked Oscar winners of all time.
Besides, like, Crash
and Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah, so you just never know how that's going to work out, and that's what we were kind of talking about, where you kind of where it's kind of like sometimes the most memorable roles aren't the ones that win or even nominated. And so yeah, just kind of.
There are a lot out there, trust me.
But I guess just some takeaways for all you listening to this episode here is just that, yeah, these are just our opinions, and I'd give a shot. But another takeaway would be just like, don't let the year a movie came out deter you from watching it. If the year it came out doesn't start with 2000. Don't let that deter you. Or even 1990, like, go back. I feel like we do get some good performances these days, but you kind of forget what a great performance is.
That's the thing with the older movies. I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. There was no CGI, no special effects. You just kind of had to show up, bring your A game. If you didn't, well, you were pretty much ridiculed. And
that's the thing, when those older movies were bad, they were just like, it was just like noticeably and unwatchably bad.
Yeah, because the camera was focusing on you.
It just failed.
You had to bring people in and make them believe what you were saying, and you had to display the right emotion. It was intense, man.
Yeah, and that's why today, when there is like a small drama made that is just relying on performances, if the people are just bad, it's just not going to work. And and it was even worse, back in that time period, because it was like it was more on you. You didn't have some CGI suit you were behind or whatever, or a bunch of things thrown in around you or something, and so.
I think that's one of the reasons why Christopher Reeve is still considered the best Superman ever. It's just he showed up, gave it his all, completely completely absorbed himself into the character of Superman, which isn't easy.
Yep.
And he pulled it off, and it was amazing.
And he was one of the few, you could say, that was able to pull off Superman and Clark Kent. There's a lot of the superheroes where they're like, well, they were good at the superhero, but not so much as the actual person. Or they were good as the person, but not so much the superhero. Christopher Reeve was good at being the bumbling Clark Kent, but he was also the curl in his hair, smirk on his face, wink at you Superman, you know? I mean...
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. Gene Hackman had won for The French Connection, and that's one of those actors who he's not doing much now.
He's calls himself retired. He pretty much has.
Yeah, but his roles from the 70s, you can't really beat that. I mean,
yeah,
he was intense, man.
Right? Yeah, yeah. French Connection, and a lot of people like The Conversation, or even if you think that movie's kind of slow. His performance is as good as the kind of the stuttering introvert security expert. Yeah, that's kind of what we're saying, and even in these epics, you know, like Ben-Hur, you know, I mean, Charlton Heston was still just gave a very compelling performance, and this is from a guy who we know could do something totally overacted and cheesy, because he was the ending of Planet of the Apes guy. It was a little over.
Oh, I thought you were going to bring up Omega Man.
Well, and I was also going to bring up Omega Man and Soylent Green, but...
Soylent Green's a classic, how
but
dare
when
you.
he had this role in Ben-Hur, he could bring it. And he did. So, yeah, I think with that, though, we'll just go ahead and wrap up this show. So, like I said, just check out these movies. You know, some of the ones we brought up, I'll just run down some of the ones. I did Gladiator, Ben-Hur, Bridge on the River Kwai. You know, we also throw out Patton, Saving Private Ryan. Dakota, what movies did you kind of bring up?
Well, The Godfather, quite a bit.
1 and 2. He brought up 1 and 2.
Silence of the Lambs, Braveheart, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Schindler's List.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just check out these movies. And the other thing you should be checking out is our Facebook page. Hopefully you like that. And that's a good place to converse with us and give us feedback / if you have anything you think you'd like us to review, throw it our way on the Facebook page. So, yeah, like that. We give you news updates on there. Keep you updated on stuff. Also, subscribe to us with whatever way you're listening to us right now. So if you haven't subscribed yet, pause, click subscribe, and then come back. Okay, I'm going to assume you're back now. So thanks for doing that. Also on YouTube, there's that little thumb. Give us that little thumbs up, if you feel so compelled to do so. But yeah, we're happy and excited to hear any feedback you have for us, and we thank you for listening to us. We're now in the 30s for a number of episodes.
Oh my god, I never thought we'd make it.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And so somewhere here down the road we'll hit number 50. We might have to think of something cool to do for number 50. So yeah, see what happens. So thanks a lot for listening. Yeah, we'll see who wins the statues this year. Like I said, there's a lot of kind of toss-up categories, and there's a few that people seem to think there's some sure things. We'll see what happens. So this is Steven.
And this is Dakota.
Have a good night.
Good night and good luck.